Welcome to Minerva Talks, a monthly show where we discuss the mysteries. We hope to give you enough information that you can go away and do your own studies. I'd like to introduce my co-host today, Duncan.
Hello.
And we'll be discussing Royston Cave. The cave was discovered in 1742 when some workmen in the town were looking to install some posts for the market, and they found a small void under the road. So, doing as they would, they couldn't see down any further, and there was only a small hole. They grabbed a small boy and hoisted him down there and asked him what was down there. Having done that, the boy came up and said, well, it's a bell-shaped cavern, and it's engraved and carved all over. There were some other bits and bobs in there, rubble, etc., that he couldn't decipher. So they decided that they would send some more people down there and do some more digging. But ever since then, they've still not really understood exactly what it was or what it was used for, and that's why it's one of the mysteries of England, and certainly in Hertfordshire, very well known. So the cave is situated on what some would say is an ancient ley line of St. Michael. How do you feel about ancient ley lines?
You're definitely one of those people, aren't you? Right, okay, ley lines. Yeah, you're happily smiling at me because, yes, I am a non-believer. The greatest argument I've got against them is a case of one of my friends, bit of a whiz on the computer thing, had great fun GPSing different churches in an area. I think he did it over like a 3-county period. Okay. And yeah, ley lines seem to link up all these churches, which would seem very conclusive. It's quite a large percentage, more than he expected. But of course, being a good scientist, he said, right, okay, what single thing can also be found in a town? Post office. So he marked all the post offices in the same area, got the same results. So either ley lines are affecting the postal service as much as they are religious worship, or there is just a case of the shortest distance between two places is a straight line. And so when it does a village here, the next village along, the next village along, it's going to be a straight line.
Of course.
So yeah, I'm sorry. The ley line part, non-believer.
Well, it's also situated on a crossroad.
That bit I'll let you have. But yeah, because of course, and an ancient one is that. There is, I always get them round the wrong way, but you've got Icknield Way and Icknield Well's across, isn't it? And the Ermine Road is going down. Two of the major roads in ancient Britain. And now both of them are quite major trunk roads now, even today, because they do facilitate the whole of England to a degree.
Yeah.
So yeah, the significance of that, I happily concede. The coincidence of actually having this hole in the ground there, you're going to have to convince me a little bit more, but that's what this discussion is, isn't it? Really?
Of course. And that's where we can maybe bring in the Knights Templar, because the cave has often been attributed to being a Knights Templar cave or place of worship. And one of the theories that I probably believe, I think it's the closest for me to being the truth, is that the Knights Templar were known to be in a preceptory in Baldock, which is not very far up the road, but Baldock was a small town. Royston had a market. So one of my beliefs is that the Templars would take their cheese and wine and things that they would sell, bring them from Baldock all the way down to Royston, and needed somewhere to store that overnight or for certain periods of time. And I think potentially that cave was either already there for some purpose and was repurposed by the Templars. But I certainly believe that that's what they were using it for. And that is why we find certain Templar carvings within the cave.
Right, okay. Possible. You can't do anything, well, you can say anything is possible. Yeah. Plausible? Yeah, it's going slightly in that direction. The few things I have a problem with would be a case of... if it was built for that, it's quite a deep bell in the sense of it's not a sense of they're trying to utilise a space, and there isn't. I know there's potholes for wooden things to go across.
Yes,
but it's not actually fitted out for shelving or to this. No. And if you were going to actually, you needed something underground to keep things cool, then do a tunnel, long tunnel, make it easy to access to go in, get your stuff out. To actually drop a hole in, and all right, Brian, I'm loading down the cheese to you now. So all right, I'm ready for it. It's not. For all their wonderful castles they built, all the engineering feats they had, They thought the best idea was to dig a hole and just drop the cheese in and get out. Doesn't do it for me.
No, and that's why I believe it was probably repurposed by the Templars. And again, there are other pointers. It is a very similar shape to the Holy Sepulchre, which we know the Templars completely revered. It also has a very small step at the bottom where it looked like was purpose for praying. So there were lots of reasons or lots of ways the Templars could have used this place. And there are Templar carvings within it. Although, and I know that you're going to say, there aren't some of the really obvious ones.
See, that's the point for me. First thing, the sepulchre. Yes, indeed, it does have that sort of, it is a domed shape. And yes, and the amazing thing is, from a Masonic perspective, if you look at early depictions in Masonic literature for the Temple of Solomon, strangely enough, they're domed. Most of them actually are, because the sepulchre was so revered, even from a Masonic perspective. But, logic. If you're digging a hole and you've got to have your roof secure, the most practical thing would be a dome. You can't level it off square. A dome would be the practical shape. Again, going down, is it similar? It's not similar. It's definitely not similar in scale. The one point you do have me on is that step. I mean, one of the theories occasionally slips into me in the sense of we are looking at something that would have been a royal forest for hunting, which means it was penalty by death, I think. If someone poached a king's deer, that's it. That's life over sort of thing.
Yeah.
If you're going to kill a deer, you need to make sure wherever you hung that beast to do it, out of the way. Underground, cool, have the deer hanging up there. You've got a little step bit where you can reach up and cut the deer. There's a little, we're going to obviously speak at some point, the little grave area where the blood could actually pour in. Yeah. All of that is possible. But the one thing you get me on is that step. I would have to concede, because the step isn't just round, is it? Like
no, it's not. No.
It is, I think it's octagonal, isn't it? Yeah. Which I must admit, it's a bit too regimented to be just for a simple practical use. And something as rustic.
Yeah, and there are also holes in the wall in front of some of the steps where you would potentially put kind of effigies or you would put candles, etc., to pray in front of. So, again, this could fall down to the repurposing of the cave.
Yeah.
Maybe originally it had a use for hunting, and then maybe later on it was used for something else. And as you mentioned there are other things, like there are some Masonic symbols down there in regards to the grave. So that's something which I don't think either of us, having had this discussion before, are quite convinced on, because it's quite small. It's quite a small shape, and also I don't think it's big enough really to perform ritually.
Exactly. I think the most thing we have there is, you mentioned, there's one of the questions we discussed before is a case of there's this little areas and we've got the steps going round, but there's a little quarter part or a segment which is just a bit shallow. And for some reason it's called the cave. And neither of us have been able to find out why we called it that. You can never get a body in it. There's no record. There's records of bones being found, but for the emerging records, I can't see anything of an actual skull, which of course would be relevant for both Freemasonry and for Templars. It would be wonderful if they said, yeah, they found a skull, 2 thigh bones, conveniently crossed.
Of course.
I'm sorry, there's your argument for Templars straight off.
Yeah.
So it's curious why we call it that. It kind of makes me think that a Mason possibly has added that because that's what they actually believe. So, yes. The Masonic symbolism, no, because Freemasonry has adopted so many existing imagery. Of course it's going to exist there beforehand because we're paralleled. I don't agree with the arguments of there being Templar symbols in there, purely from the sense of, if it was going to be Templar, I would expect the Templar cross. I would expect the flag. I would expect, if not 2 horsemen depicted on a horse, they're not there.
No, very true. They're not. One of the symbols I really like down there, one of the engravings is often referred to as the army. And if you actually count, there's a number of very rough people.
Yeah.
And there's 32. And of course, right next to them is a guy burning on a cross, who you would think potentially could be Jacques de Molay, making 33, which is again a number within Templarism and Freemasonry, very significant. So there are lots of these very small points which keep adding up and give it a flavour of it potentially being Templar or Masonic in some way. One of the others is up above the cave was, as many ancient crossroads would have, they would have a cross.
Yep.
And that cross was the Rose Cross. Now, again, just coincidence or not, who knows? But it was actually the Rose Cross because of Lady Rosa.
Yeah.
That was the person that commissioned it. But again, the Rose Cross being so significant within Freemasonry, it just really makes you feel, and again, significant with Templarism, it makes you feel that all of these things adding up have got to be something.
Yeah, I mean, I have to begrudgingly, not concede the point, but I have to add to you, says, you've got England. The first recorded name for the British Isles is Albion, to my knowledge, which of course was from the Roman sense of the land being white, because of the idea of when they came across, they saw the white cliffs, and they named the island Albion. So it's a lovely idea that you've got Albion being white, and you've got these crossroads on Rose, there's cross. Yeah. Oh, it's so beautiful, but I can't take that step to accept it. It is tantalising, but for me, it's still a coincidence. It's something that we would add to. I mean, there's the other thing. I mean, you've got a cave on the two. I know it's predating the highwayman sort of thing, but if you've got one major road going that way, and you've got one major road going that way, and you need to, and you're checking on the merchants who are going down this road, then your little base of operations would actually be at the apex of those two roads.
Yep. And
so there's so many different things it could be used for that it's actually there. But again, I don't see. People are so quick to identify with the easily recognisable characters of cave. St. Christopher, so easy. You've got the big character, you've got Jesus on his shoulder, the wheel for Catherine, and all those sort of bits and pieces. But you've got so many obscure ones. Like you've got targets with half a dart going into it. So obscure. To me, it does appear that you could easily have someone who's stuck down there and go, oh, that lump, and it's just graffitiing what's actually already there.
Yeah, it's really hard to identify where it's from, because you'll go into other places, churches in France, etc., where the symbolism all matches.
Yeah. Here
it really doesn't. No. There's a dog. There's
or a donkey.
Or a donkey potentially. Yeah. I mean, there's lots of weird things there. Another one that stands out again was potentially being Masonic is a hand with a heart in it.
Yes.
But again, another ancient symbol. So there is plenty down there for you to see. One thing that I would say is, regardless of what your belief, it's worth seeing.
Oh God, yeah, definitely. I mean, for myself, if I was going to give it an explanation was why it's actually there. When they were taking out all the earth, the only bit of evidence, there were some bones found, but there's nothing been tested on those, was a piece of pottery.
Yes.
And the pottery dates from, I believe it's we're looking at the 17th century. At that period, we had heavy suppression on Catholics and the priests, and they had to be hidden somewhere.
Yeah.
We know about priest holes, bits and pieces. It is not that difficult to believe that if you mentioned it several times about a place being reused for different reasons.
Of course,
it could just be used there as a practical storage space.
Yeah, and
then of course, if nobody really knows about it, let's hide the priest down there, and the priest has got to do something with his time because he can't get out. So he redecorates in his own little vein, but I still can't explain why he's done these little dart boards. Maybe he's playing darts to pass the time. That's just stuck down there.
No,
but definitely worth a visit.
Well, I think this will rage on. Nobody's quite sure. There are some great books on the subject. There's other videos and there's other material out there that you can do. But really, for me, is go along and see it. Go along and see, and actually listen to what the guide says, because the guide is very, very clear when you go there that they still don't know what it is. So it's really up to you to try and make your mind up and go and do your own research, and to see what you feel. So I think it's definitely something that is worth doing. And maybe Minerva in the future will do its own trip. We shall see. Yeah. So thanks very much for watching. We hope that you've enjoyed this episode, and we'd like to see you very, very soon.